so good. Hey, good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, January 6th, and this is In Case You Missed American History. Odds are, if you're watching this, that means you, for some reason, couldn't make it to class today, and that is okay. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're feeling great. I hope mentally and physically you're in a good spot, and I hope everyone around you is doing well. I hope your families are dealing with the stress and strain of all this, and that everybody's safely maneuvering all this fog that we've had lately. Again, try and find some time today to do something for you, some little self-care, play a video game, watch a show that you like, listen to some music, draw, paint, read, whatever it is that puts you in your happy spot, man. I think we all need a little bit of that right now with the pandemic and the dreariness of winter, all right? But mainly, hey, take good care of yourself. So if you're watching this, you didn't make the class today, and we're going to go through over the things that we need to go over, and I'm going to cover the things that we covered today and try to give you some good examples of things so that you can understand what's going on. We're going to cover 3 of the ideas from Chapter 4 of the Populist Era. But a couple of reminders. First, if you owe me any late work or you want to resubmit any work for a better score, please make sure to get that to me as soon as possible. Remember, the quarter is ending next Friday, and we want you to do well. I want you to do well. All right, maybe sometimes more than you do. So let me know if you have questions about any of the work or late work or what you can do or how you find things. Be checking Infinite Campus. The other thing I wanted to remind you about is that Seeking Empire is due on Friday by midnight. I'm open to questions on that too, obviously, if you need me. Make sure you're answering those questions in full sentences and you're doing the best you can. That's going to be the last assignment for the quarter. We will have a test at the end of next week. But for now, that should be your kind of your big focus, okay? Once we get done with the notes, if you have any time left in your day scheduled for American history, do some work. And make sure you're taking care of things you need to take care of for your other classes too. Okay. And if there's anything I can help you with, please let me know. Okay. One of my favorite little videos is that Linda, listen, Linda. I love that kid. He's so funny. All right. So, I'm going to move on, cover the 3 things we need to cover. Remember, the slides are pretty simple. So if you're just doing little screenshots of the slides, that may or may not be the most useful thing you could do. You might want to jot down a couple extra things along the way. Here we go. All right, so first today we're going to talk about tariffs. And the reason I picked out talking about this isn't because it was important in 1900 when it all came up as a big deal, but also that it is still important today in 2020 and probably will be well into your life. Lately, if you follow the news, you hear about tariffs with places like China, who we do a ton of trade with. You hear tariffs with Mexico and other trade partners that the United States trades with. And you might wonder, what is a tariff? I don't know what that is. And so a tariff is generally a tax on imported or sometimes exported goods, usually on imported things coming into your country from foreign countries. Okay. So for instance, when an American car gets sold to somebody in Brazil, we generally don't put a tax on that. Okay. But when a Japanese car comes into the United States, we'll put an extra tax on that car. Now, if you're wondering why are we doing that? First of all, it's a revenue stream for the government. It gives them an opportunity to make more money on items. The second reason is if we put a tariff on an imported item from a foreign country, that makes the American option more attractive. In the diagram or the graphic that I put on the slide, it's showing how if a piece of cloth comes from Great Britain, the British, England, London, whatever it comes from over there, it may be $4 a roll. The same roll of cloth from the United States might be $4. It might be slightly more, it might be slightly less. But when the United States taxes that coming in, let's say they put a 25% tax on it like they do in the diagram, a dollar tax, not only is the government getting that dollar that they can use for defense, education, road improvement, governments, whatever governments do with money, I'm sure you have your own ideas. That makes the British cloth now $5. So when they put that in a fabric store, the American cloth is sitting right here for $4. The British cloth is sitting right here for $5. You're going to go, ooh, they're pretty much the same thing. I'm going to grab this American one because it's cheaper. An American company makes money. The government gets an extra dollar if they sell the British roll of fabric. Life is good. Okay. And so a tariff promotes American business over any others. Now, the one issue with that we have as consumers or people that buy things is that some American companies know that the American government will protect them. And so what American companies will sometimes do is they will edge their price up a little bit, knowing that the government will tax the foreign item to make it at or slightly above the cost. So there's a possibility that tariffs might actually be costing you more money to get the goods that you want. Now, I'm talking about back then. At that time period in history, Republicans generally tended to be pro-tariff. They liked the idea. The reason that they liked the idea is generally the Republicans back then lived in the North, and they were business owners. They were the people with money, okay? Democrats back then tended to be poorer Southerners. They tended to be farmers who didn't always have the most money and were buying a lot of product. And so Democrats didn't always favor a high tariff or a tariff at all. If you think about it from your perspective, you're going to make your own personal choice on this. Do you think that the Japanese car should be taxed for coming into the country, making it more expensive, making the American car maybe more attractive from a price point, but knowing that maybe that American company can edge their price up just a little bit? That's a little critical thinking for you. Are you okay with that idea? Do you believe in defending American businesses and possibly allowing American businesses to bump up the price point a little bit? Or do you think that the Japanese car should be allowed to come into the United States with no extra tax, and therefore maybe you're more likely to buy the Japanese car because it's cheaper? Your call. Again, if you're a politician someday, you get to make the decision. Okay. If you don't understand that one's a little bit of a tricky. I don't know if it's tricky. Maybe you think it's easy, but if you think that one's tricky and you want to message me and talk about that one a little bit more, I'd be more than happy to do that. Okay. Next concept for today is the idea of social gospel in society. Now, in order to understand this one, first, we need to backtrack to the Gilded Age, the last unit where you guys did the tic-tac-toe project. And there was an idea introduced in that unit that I don't know if you caught, because I don't know if you actually watched the 5 videos that you were supposed to watch. Can't be sure. Okay. And so you may have missed an idea called social Darwinism. Okay, social Darwinism. Now, if you're like, Darwin, I know that name. I know that name. Why do I know that name? Darwin was the person who came up with the theory of evolution, that animals will adapt and change, and humans can adapt and change to better fit their environments. He was talking about like turtle. I took the word turtle and tortoise and tried to put it together like 6 times. Tortoise shells were different depending on where they lived in the world. Birds' wings were different based on where they lived in the world. People's eyes and skin color were different based on where they lived in the world. And he thought that was those animals or those creatures adapting to better fit in their environment. Now, if we apply social Darwinism to people, social Darwinism said that the best people in society, the rich, the famous, the influential, they're better suited to be successful than the people who are poor factory workers. And that wasn't Darwin's idea. Someone else came up with this. But social Darwinism says that the best people are really the best people, and therefore they deserve the most and they deserve the best, while the poor, they don't get things, and that's what they deserve. And so in the idea of social Darwinism, if I brought your entire class out into the lunchroom and you forgot your lunch, everyone else has lunch, but you forgot your lunch, and I ordered Jimmy John's for lunch. We're all going to have lunch in the lunchroom. You guys bring your lunch. You forgot your lunch. I ordered Jimmy John's. And Jimmy John's accidentally sends me 2 sandwiches. Okay, I have 2. Your classmates all have something. You have nothing. In social Darwinism, I eat 1 sandwich. If I don't want the other one, I just throw it away. And the reason for that is I'm better than you because you don't have lunch. You suck. Sorry, you stink. And you don't deserve a sandwich because that's what you get. Your classmates shouldn't share Cheez-Its with you. They shouldn't give you a Twinkie. They shouldn't give you half their sandwich because well, I'm sorry, you stink. You deserve what you get. Okay? The hard part with social Darwinism is it basically said that the rich people will always be rich because they're just better, and the poor people will always be poor because they suck. Okay? And therefore, there is no sense in the rich people helping the poor people because they suck and they're just going to screw it up. That was controversial, but the people in power liked the idea. And the reason that people in power liked the idea is because made them seem better. It made them seem smarter. It made them seem more destined to become even more successful than they were. Poor people didn't like the idea because it basically says hashtag sucks to suck, buddy. Now, fast forward to this chapter. Obviously, there are people who don't like the idea of social Darwinism, so they develop their own idea called social gospel. I need you to think about that word, this word right here. Think about the word gospel. Where does that word come from? Where are you used to hearing that word? If you said church, you're correct. Now think about how churches would think about this. In social gospel, it's everyone's duty to take care of everyone else, to bring the people that are below you up, okay? To not let anyone slip through the cracks, to take care of everyone, treat other people how you want to be treated. And in the example I gave you before, we're having lunch in the lunchroom. 16 of you have got a great lunch. You don't have anything. I get double Jimmy John's. According to social gospel, I go, wow, I have 2 sandwiches. I do not need 2 sandwiches. And therefore, I will give you my sandwich, because by giving you my sandwich, I am helping you. And eventually that will help me, because society will be better. Okay? The idea that if you have 2 blankets and you're not cold, you give one to someone who's cold. That once you outgrow that shirt, you take it to Goodwill and you donate it. But maybe the Goodwill should be free and just give the shirt away. I don't know. So you got to look at this. Are you a social Darwinism fan, or are you a social gospel fan? Again, a little critical thinking there. Do you think that the rich are just better and that the poor suck and therefore there's no sense in helping? Or do you think that everyone's in this together and therefore that the people who are up here have an obligation to help the people who are down here? Does Jeff Bezos, the owner of Amazon, just look down on all of us and go, look at all my money is, you suck? Or does Jeff Bezos have an obligation to look at all of us and say, hey, I want to help you guys all be a little bit better? So, okay, think about it. What do you think? Okay, and there's nothing communistic about that. There's nothing, I'm not saying everybody gets equal. I'm not saying Jeff Bezos should take all of his money and split it out among all of us. But the idea of social gospel help those that are less fortunate than you. The idea of social Darwinism, it's not really worth helping those that are less fortunate than you. Okay, so click that one in your head, see what you think. Okay, last one today is about a guy you've never heard of before, and a guy you probably never will hear of again. Jacob Coxey. That's Jacob Coxey right there. He's a good-looking dude. He ties a mean tie. It's real fat at the top. Okay, sweet glasses for back in the day. Jacob Coxey was just a regular dude. And the reason that I talk about Jacob Coxey, and probably no other history teacher in America does, is because Jacob Coxey is a valuable lesson. Okay, Jacob Coxey was just a regular guy. And he lived in the 1890s, and there was a depression in the 1890s, pretty bad one. Not the Great Depression, that's 1929. We'll talk about that in the next quarter that I have, you guys. Jacob Coxey truly believed that the solution to a depression was to get people jobs so they would get a paycheck so they had money to spend. And so when Coxey lost his job in the Depression of 1890, because that's what happens, people lose their job in depressions, Coxey came up with this idea that the federal government should pay people to do kind of busy work jobs. Things like right now going out and shoveling old people's snow, tightening the bolts on every park bench in the county, painting murals at schools, building playgrounds, organizing books at the library. And the government should pay unemployed people during a depression to do that so that they have a paycheck, so they have money, so they can go out and spend the money, so the money circulates. And as soon as everything starts to pick back up, the government doesn't have to pay you to do all those rinky-dink jobs anymore. Not that any of those jobs aren't important. It doesn't have to pay you to do any of those rinky-dink jobs, and you can go back to being an accountant or a teacher or a garbage man or whatever job it is that you were doing. And so Coxey thought his idea was really smart. And so Coxey decided to walk from his home in Ohio to Washington, D.C. and tell his idea to the government, to the Senate, and to the House of Representatives. And so he walked because he didn't have enough money to do anything else. The train was his only option. He didn't have that, so he was going to walk. And along the way, when he would stop in towns, he would tell people his thoughts, and people started to walk with him. And he developed this group of people called Coxey's Army. And Coxey's Army, when they got to Washington, D.C., Jacob Coxey was like, I want to talk to the government. I have this great idea for how to end the Depression. and he went to the congressional building and he was arrested for trespassing. He was thrown in jail. And when he was released from jail after a couple of days, they loaded him on a train back to Ohio. He ended up getting through the Depression. He lived a normal life and forgotten by history. Okay, so big deal. See why? Jacob Coxey, great. Wrote it down. Took a screenshot. Awesome. What's the test question? Here's the important lesson from Jacob Coxey, and I need you to understand this. Sometimes you're not appreciated in your time. Sometimes your ideas are not valued when you are around. The value of Coxey is this. In 1929, the Great Depression hits. Unemployment reaches all-time highs. Joblessness, homelessness, adoptions, all those things through the roof. Okay, the suicide rate gets ridiculously high, and no one in the government knows how to solve the problem. And then in 1932, a guy named Franklin Delano Roosevelt, better known as FDR, gets elected president. And FDR was a student of history, and so FDR suggested that the government should hire the unemployed people of the country to do jobs like build parks and go to school and paint murals, and people that were musicians could go to schools and communities and do free concerts, and the government would pay them to do these things. And so I don't think it's a coincidence that FDR, who was a big student of history, knew about Jacob Coxey. And even though Coxey never got any credit, his idea helps save the country. So remember, you might not always be appreciated in your time. Maybe not as obviously, but maybe something that you do now will make an impact on somebody down the road. Maybe you're making somebody's life better 5 years from now, something that you did today. Okay, so your challenge today, other than do your homework and get caught up and check Infinite Campuses, try to do something today that's going to make somebody's life better. Not just today, but maybe down the road. Have a great day. I miss you guys. I'll see you soon. Hope you're well. Bye-bye.